When I was about 4 years old, my father was an accountant in Rexburg, Idaho, and he owned a hotel called the Idamont Hotel. And things didn't go very well in his business, and so he decided to take his family and move, which I believe was the single greatest thing that he ever did for me in my life, because we moved from freezing cold Rexburg, Idaho to nice, sunny Los Angeles, California. So when I was 4 years old, we packed up all of our stuff and we headed to Los Angeles. We probably looked like the Beverly Hillbillies, my dad, my mom, and my two sisters and I, and we drove through the desert, which was really hot. And I think that it was a combination of the heat and my age, but somehow on that trip I developed a lung problem, which then developed into bronchial pneumonia. And so when we arrived in California, the first day that we were there, I could not breathe. So they had to rush me to the hospital, and I spent the first 2 weeks in California in an oxygen tent with bronchial pneumonia. And so that kind of damaged my lungs, and after that I suffered with asthma for many years. I think it was better in California because of the dry climate, but I suffered from that asthma for a long period of time. So that was probably hard on my dad, because when we moved there he didn't have a job, and he didn't have insurance or anything like that back at that time. This was in the early 60s. And so we were kind of an interesting family in that we were really fresh off the farm. My Rexburg, Idaho is a very small place to be from, and so I don't think that I in my life had ever seen a black person until we moved to Los Angeles. And I think it was the same way with my older sisters. And so we went to school there, and we were a little bit odd, I'm thinking. And so we had to kind of make a transition from being Idaho farm people to living in the second largest city in the United States, which was very diverse. So I think because of that, at first we were a little bit depressed and a little bit afraid, because we thought we were kind of weird. And so we just kind of stayed in the house all the time. And we didn't really venture out to make friends the way that we should have. Eventually we did this over time, and it took my sisters a little bit of time to get out and make friends, but eventually we ingrained in the civilization and the society. And I think that was a big benefit to me in my life, because one of the things that they taught us in the LA City school system was the importance of embracing diversity and the importance of being colorblind when it came to race and ethnicity and to religion. And so I really grew up not really seeing people as black or white or Chinese or Muslim or Catholic or Baptist, but just seeing them as good or bad. And you meet good people and you meet bad people throughout your life. And so I really enjoyed the opportunity that I had to grow up in Los Angeles, even though it started kind of on a bad note with developing bronchial pneumonia and asthma. And I found that if I stayed in good shape, that I was able to overcome that. So I started kind of a routine when I was in high school of exercising every day. And some days it would be really bad and I wouldn't be able to breathe. And they came up with new medications and things that made it better for me to breathe. But I always found that if I stayed in somewhat good shape and did exercising every day, that would help reduce my asthma syndrome. So I'm so thankful for my dad and for my mom that they moved us off the farm. No insult to the ancestors, but they moved us to a large metropolitan city, which was great to grow up in. Back in the 60s and 70s, Los Angeles and Canoga Park, the town we lived in, was an amazing place to live. And I had really good friends there from all different backgrounds. So a lot of my friends were Catholic, a lot of my friends were Jewish, and we got along really well. And so I remember in Canoga Park, we would get up on Sunday to go to our church, which was the Mormon church, and we'd go outside, and everybody would be dressed up and headed to church, whether they were Lutheran or Baptist or Catholic or Jewish. Everybody went to church. And so it was really a great community to live in, because we all had this thing in common, and that was that we believed in God. And that kind of drew us together as a community. And so there was a lot of closeness in that neighborhood that we lived in. And so I loved my early years growing up in Los Angeles, especially the times that I could breathe.